BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. It started with a short three-letter mission with a long, far-reaching global vision.
CGTN World Insight special
A
program.
decade onwards, where does the BRI stand? Hear it straight from 10 diverse voices from 6 countries spanning 4 continents.
BRI is bringing people closer for a better world.
So China is a friend of these countries, and we don't see any so-called threat from China.
So it's not only about China and Greece, it's about Asia and Europe.
Without BRI, this dream would never become true.
How today's Belt and Road built on the rich tapestry of inter-civilization exchanges along the ancient Silk Road. Be inspired and be informed. Catch our special series, Vision into Reality, right here on CGTN.
Hello and welcome to CGTN World Insight special program, Vision into Reality. This is a co-production between CGTN and media outlets and think tanks from all over the world. I'm your host, Tian Wei.
My name is Manuela Castañeda. I'm from Argentina, and I'm a journalist in the national news agency called Telam.
And I'm Fanis Papathanasiou. I'm an anchor and senior diplomatic correspondent with ERT, the public television of Greece.
The year 2023 marks the 10th anniversary of the Belt and Road Initiative. Over the past decade, China has signed more than 200 cooperation ventures with BRI partners, with 152 countries and also 32 international institutions.
BRI has evolved from infrastructure building to green and high-quality development.
Together, we're ready to make greater contribution to promoting global sustainable development and inter-civilization exchanges.
Together, let's talk about our future. Stay tuned. I'm so glad to be joined by a panel of leading media figures and also scholars from the 5 continents. Let's go one by one. From Argentina, 2 honorable guests. Manuela Castañeda, host of Telam Global from Argentina. Good to see you.
Yes.
Also sitting together with her, Francisco Tayana, who is the director of the international cooperation from the Ministry of Culture from Argentina. Welcome.
大家好, very happy to be here.
Good to see you. From Greece, we have our 2 colleagues, Fanis Papathanasiou, who is the host of Hellenic Broadcasting Corporation, or ERT from Greece. Good to see
Thank you, Wei.
Fanis.
Very glad to be here.
So happy to have you back on CGTN. Meanwhile, Dr. George Zogopoliou, who is a senior fellow of the Hellenic Foundation for European and Foreign Policy. Good to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Face to face, welcome back.
Thank you.
Sitting on my right side, Professor Xie Tao from the School of International Relations and Diplomacy. He's the dean of the school, and he is coming from Beijing Foreign Studies University. Professor Xie.
Thank you for having me here.
Good to see you. Coming from Pakistan, our 2 honorable guests. Mushahid Hussain, who's a senator and also chairman of the Senate Defense Committee from Pakistan. Good to see you, sir.
It's a pleasure to be here in China.
Thank you so much. And Professor Dushka Saidi, who is the editor of Yolin Good Neighbors. Good to see you, Professor.
Delighted to be here.
Thank you. Last but certainly not least, 2 guests coming from the African continent. Sitting over there from Kenya, Professor Peter Kakwanja, who is President and Chief Executive of Africa Policy Institute. Good to see you.
Glad to be here, thank you.
And Hisham Abu Baker Metwali, who is coming from the Egyptian Ministry of Foreign Trade and Industry. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. The Belt and Road Initiative, we've already experiencing and also working together for 10 years. I'm sure many of you have great feedbacks about this collaboration. I would love to invite our two colleagues coming from Argentina and Greece to bring us some of their thoughts. Please, Manuela.
Yes, thank you very much. In Argentina, the hydroelectric power plants is a very big project in bilateral cooperation with China. There are two dams building projects. One of them is called Néstor Kirchner, and the other one is called Jorge Zepernik. And they are both in the south of Argentina, near the famous Perito Moreno in Patagonia. This initiative began in 2013 when the Chinese company called Hesouba Group Corporation and other Argentine firms formed the Chinese-Argentine Consortium with the purpose to improve the country's energies infrastructure and satisfying the electric needs of more than 1 million families. So, thanks to this installation, Argentina will save more than $1.5 billion because of the substitution of import liquid fuels as it's happening at the moment. And nowadays, the estimated progress of the dams building is about 25% for the Néstor Kirchner and 40% for the Jorge Zepernik. So, Francisco, how would you define the relation between Argentina and China?
Well, thank you very much for asking that. Actually, the relations between the Argentine Republic and the People's Republic of China last year just had their first 50th anniversary. The inclusion of Argentina into the Belt and Road Initiative is a quantitative leap in Sino-Argentine relations. China has become Argentina's second greatest trading partner. Its investments in infrastructure and energy sectors really have enormous potential for the country. And in that sense, I think the Belt and Road Initiative means a lot, not only for Argentina, but for Latin America in general. As more and more countries get onto the Belt and Road Initiative, I truly think that this can be an engine for Latin American integration. An integration that also needs not only a political and institutional aspect, but also a physical infrastructure aspect to it to really join these countries together and integrate them in another fashion into the world economy.
And the project Manuela just mentioned certainly is a reflection of that.
It is one of our best known projects, but it's not the only one. China continues to invest heavily in renewable energies in Argentina. This is a case. We also have the case of a major solar power plant in the north of Argentina in Jujuy. We have also projects in the works such as nuclear energy and also a lot of different potential areas, which not only promise enormous potential for the Argentine economy, but I think is also a hallmark of China's deep commitment to renewable energies as part of its worldwide strategy.
We heard voices already coming from Latin America. How about Europe? Vanis, why some of the key projects under BRI so important for Greece and for China?
Very important because, first of all, the port of Piraeus and the investment of COSCO in Piraeus.
That's the most well-known, isn't it?
The largest port in Greece. It is one of the most successful stories of investment, of foreign investment for China. Before the BRI and before this investment, this port had the local capacity. Now, the port of Piraeus became one of the most important and dynamic ports in Europe, and is the gate for the Chinese products to Europe. Before this investment, the Chinese products, in order to come to Greece, had to take like 27 days. Now, with the port of Piraeus, which is closest, is the first stop of the ships, the big ships with containers with Chinese products to Europe, make 23 days. So it consumes money and time for the Chinese products. So that's why this is one of the most critical foreign investment for China in Europe. At the same time, contributes this investment of COSCO to the local community in Greece.
Yes, indeed. So it's a mutually beneficial project for both sides. You have brought George, our longtime friend, with us today.
George is one of the most talented and young academians in Greece. But before we go to a question, let's hear a song that the workers of Costco at the port of Piraeus wrote and made a video clip in order to show the world how important is the growth and the progress of the port of Piraeus.
All right. Do you sing the song also?
Yes.
All right.
Στο λιμάνι, καφέ συνέψη μάνι. Το λιμάνι βάνει και βγάνει.
So it's written by a worker of Costco at the port of Piraeus, who happens to be an artist, says how important is now the port of Piraeus, and he's talking about the progress of the port. Now, going back to George.
It's important to mention that China, Costco Shipping, had already started to invest in the port before the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative. 2008 and 2009. And the launch of the Belt and Road Initiative facilitated the process. So new investments came after 2015 and 2016. And as you said before, the port now is one of the biggest in the Mediterranean. It has become a transshipment hub. And one of the most important characteristics of this investment is that it goes beyond Greece and China. Several other countries across the world and companies of other countries can benefit by this investment. I can give a recent example. Recently in Greece, Indian Prime Minister Modi visited Athens, and one of the most important parts of the conversations of the leaders of Greece and India was that Piraeus can function as a gateway for Indian products to Europe. So it's not only about China and Greece, it's about Asia and Europe.
Some European countries see with skepticism BRI's project. What is Greece's response on this?
This is a very important question. We should say at first that Chinese investment in the port of Piraeus aligns with the European framework and with the European legal framework. The investment had taken place before the beginning of this ongoing skepticism. And indeed, the European Union tends to view China in a triple way, and relations between China and the European Union are currently tense. However, the investment in the port of Piraeus can be a good opportunity for the two sides, Greece and China, but also the European Union and China, to learn about each other. And recently there were some problems also in the port of Piraeus with workers and with the further development of the port, but the two sides, Greece and China, need to find solutions. And they are in the process of finding solutions because the contract will expire in the 50s. So it's important to mention this, that the two sides need to work with each other, to learn by the mistakes and to make improvements.
Thank you very much for both of your input. Going to Mr. Senator from Pakistan.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and congratulations on the 10th anniversary of the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, which I think is probably the most important developmental and diplomatic initiative of the 21st century, launched by President Xi Jinping. And you can see 10 years down the line, the dividends, the benefits accruing to the people who are recipients of and members of BRI, especially Pakistan, because Pakistan-China relations are long-standing, and our China-Pakistan Economic Corridor has been the flagship of BRI, and in BRI, the flagship of CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, is the Gwadar Port. And in Gwadar Port, which you just mentioned, Piraeus, which has been a very important development, China's role has transformed Gwadar and Pakistan's economy, because Gwadar lies at the southern tip of Pakistan, Arabian Sea, linking different countries in the maritime Silk Road. And in that one project, which has been now 10 years down the line, it has already been successfully launched, is the Pakistan-China Vocational Training Institute. You have a University of Gwadar, and they have teamed up with the Shandong Institute for Technology to form this Pakistan-China Vocational Training Institute. Free education to the locals, vocational training in e-commerce, in finance, in maritime management, hospitality, financial affairs, and also women and youth empowerment, employment.
Professor Sayed, how do you see BRI at this moment? It's not just what Mr. Senator earlier mentioned, just mortar and bricks, but rather being updated from infrastructure only to updated version of BRI, green BRI, more high quality BRI?
President Xi talked about an inclusive civilization this last March this year. And Yolan magazine is promoting cultural exchange, cultural dialogue, and it's the only online English and Chinese cultural magazine. It's not political at all. So it's promoting an understanding between the people of China and Pakistan. And that is one expression of BRI.
Yes, indeed. The voices coming from Africa, extremely important. And we have two gentlemen coming from different parts of Africa, from Egypt and Kenya. Tell me more about projects of BRI that's taking place where you are.
This year marks 60 years of China-Kenya diplomatic relations.
Congratulations.
It's a great year for us. I also want to note that Kenya is the connection between the past of Africa and China and the future. From the historians, we have learned that Chinese sailors made as many 7 trips to the city of Mombasa and the other cities in Nairobi, in the Indian Ocean, long before the Europeans ventured into the Indian Ocean. And in the 21st century, here we are, the greatest and the most ambitious project by China through BRI is ventured in Kenya. This is the standard gauge railway from Mombasa. Now it has reached a small city called Naivasha, having passed through Nairobi. And the African dream is to have that railway reach the port of Matandi in the Atlantic coast of Democratic Republic of Congo. And for the first time in our history, if this dream comes true, we'll be able to export things to Americas and Europe by sea from the Indian Ocean, because we'll be connected. It's something we do appreciate, that without BRI, this dream would never become true.
Part of it is already come true, isn't it?
Yes.
I even heard you held a conference, an international conference on the train.
Yes, and it was a great ambition I've held for 2 years. That one day I'll do what they did to end the First World War and the Second World War, make a treaty in the train. So I held the first conference on the train, and from Nairobi to Mombasa, a distance of about 480 kilometers. We covered about 5.5 hours, and in it we had intense discussions with the UN chief officials, academics, practitioners, and it was vibrant, exciting.
What was along the way? What did people see from the train?
Because as you know, the railway traverses 2 of the world's most scenic national reserves. That is the Nairobi National Park and the Tsavo National Park, one of the largest in the country. And it's interesting that in the middle of your conference on the move, you are also able to peep through the window and see a giraffe here and an elephant there, you know, a lion maybe there. You hope that you will see one chasing another. Oh, it was exciting. And what you also see...
I hope the train is not offending their natural life.
No. The architects, both Kenyan and Chinese, were very careful in balancing development and nature. What they did is that they have built what you can call a land bridge. And that bridge is tall enough to allow the tallest giraffe known in human history. That is a Maasai bull called George, who was 5.8 meters.
He even has a name.
Yeah. And therefore, the bridge has to be taller than George. And so that ancestors of George will not be obstructed by this railway. It's the longest land bridge, 29 kilometers across the park.
Right.
And there is another bridge now across the park, you know, in Nairobi National Park. Therefore, nature is well taken care of by our dreams of development.
And to you, Hisham, in Egypt, also many projects related to BRI, but we are seeing some very good early harvests already.
Yes, in the beginning, I want to emphasize some important thing because Belt and Road Initiative is coming from the old Silk Road. And when President Xi Jinping announced his initiative 2013 about reinvigoration of the Silk Road, the Silk Road is goods with the silk coming from China, but always coming with a camel. You can see the camel sign. That's what happening is goods coming from China and crossing the Red Sea, and then stop because there is no Suez Canal. When it stopped, all the goods transfer to the Mediterranean Sea through camels. That's why the old Silk Road always comes with the camel pictures. So the camel come from Egypt, the product come from China. So Egypt, China, the old Silk Road are all the main 2 points, components of this road.
I'm very curious about the Suez Canal because it's so crucial for the international trade for decades. So, tell me more about that.
So Suez Canal before, since we initiated Suez Canal, only the ships comes and they pay money for crossing the Suez Canal services. But until now, since all the time, maybe more than 100 years, we just get this money to cross the Suez Canal. So our ambitions comes to more than this. From $5 billion, we want to earn $100 billion. So now we are building more than 5 ports on the Suez Canal and expanding more ports. And one of those ports will be built by China. This is also very big, big port. Another port in Alexandria to link between Red Sea and White Sea also. And this is one of the big projects. Another project is because Egypt always live on the 7% of our land, only 7% in habitation. So now we are building new capital city to expand our habitation area to 13%. So this new capital city, China has also invested a lot of investments in the new capital city for the CBD. So many towers are now built by China, and these towers will be used for international companies to open investment in Egypt, and brought also goods and employment for Egyptians. And also we can mention the economic zone, Suez Canal economic zone. So it's not only to invest in those like boards or electric train, also economic zone. This economic zone had attracted at least 145 new Chinese companies. All those Chinese companies come and give opportunity for 5,000 Egyptians to work for those industries. And one of the biggest world factory for fiberglass are in Egypt. I visited there many times because this is also very interesting. Anyone Chinese comes, I took him to visit his industrial zone. So this is the first place he likes to visit.
I see.
And I noticed a lot of Egyptians working there very happy because they combine the experience they gain from the factory and the place industries, and also gain the, how to live happily because there is a park and also there is a school and there's a community, is very happy community. This is a model for any industrial park.
Interesting. It seems that all of you have been sharing your stories. One of the things that at least in common is to dream big and get it done. I love that. What about for you, Professor Xie? You're from China. Of course, it's not China that's initiating the BRI, but rather everybody we have here and beyond are working together on the Belt and Road Initiative. What is your takeaway listening to your colleagues from different parts of the world? Meanwhile, how is China looking at this golden opportunity to work with others under the BRI umbrella?
So let me tell you one of my stories about BRI. I once took a cruise ship voyage around the world. And so we started from San Diego, we crossed the Pacific Ocean, and then we go down from Vietnam, Hong Kong to the Yangon and India. And so we stopped by Cochin, and we had a refueling station in Mauritius, and we went down to Cape Town, and then Ghana and Morocco. So my experience with BRI is in Ghana. I remember when our ship docked in the port of Accra, we see this huge signs of China Harbor, China Harbor Construction Company. And then I talk to local people, they say they are very proud. They say the Chinese companies are coming here, and so they are going to build the largest port in Western Africa. And so they are going to help local economies to develop. BRI, my slogan when I tell people who want to understand about BRI is that BRI is bringing people closer for a better world. That's my personal interpretation of BRI. You talk about connectivity, you talk about trade, you talk about people-to-people exchanges, but ultimately, I think it's about bringing people together for a better world. A better world means we share prosperity, we share peace, we share development, right? And so when I hear all these stories from Argentina, from Pakistan, Africa, and Greece, so this is so encouraging. And I would say that China has really written a very shining answer sheet on the 10th anniversary of the BRI. I think everybody who is really caring about people's local development, they should be very proud of what China has done to the world.
China, 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 China. China has been so much emphasized. Many wonder whether China is taking all over the world, as some have been suggesting, for example, in the media coverage. I don't know, what is your reaction if someone asks you a question like that? Let's go to you.
China is playing an important role, and this initiative has a significant impact towards stability, peace, and development in the world. So I would not say that China is taking the world, but it contributes to the peace and stability and interconnectivity of the world, gives some values and promotes infrastructure for some countries, is taking developments in order to promote its trade, but at the same time promote stability in the region.
Is it a threat or is it a real opportunity?
I don't see any threat. I see a great opportunity. But basically what is happening is that the global center of gravity is shifting. And that shift is inexorable and inevitable. So it's not just about China. It's about cooperation that is mutual benefit and is building a better tomorrow for the peoples of those countries. And they find that this is the way forward, because we've already seen China has given, I think, what I would say is a strategic option of development, of connectivity and cooperation, as opposed to what was presented to us of containment, conflict, confrontation, or a new Cold War. That we reject. And China is an Asian country. China is rising peacefully, without aggression, without invasion, without occupation, without conquest. So China is a friend of these countries. And we don't see any so-called threat from China.
George, please.
Well, actually, I would say that the Belt and Road Initiative is a massive project which started in 2013. And everyone is talking about interconnectivity. There is a very nice Greek adjective which can better illustrate this interconnectivity, which is the organic interconnectivity. This practically means that even countries across the globe which have not joined the initiative are influenced by the initiative. Because trade, for example, can start in China and go to Greece, but others which are not part of the Belt and Road Initiative, of course, can benefit by this rise in the trade volume. At the same time, even the reaction from the side of the European Union and the United States in the last years is suggesting that the Belt and Road Initiative has been kind of successful in bringing different benefits across the globe. That balance has to do with the new geopolitical conditions across the globe.
Which is still evolving.
Of course, and obviously the level of collaboration that can exist between the West, United States, and the European Union and China. Problems are existing, but if there is a common will, there is a way.
There are different opinions coming out as we speak. It's wonderful discussion. Let's go to Peter.
Well, I see China through BRI as a responsible power. It's a responsible member of the international community. Those who are historians will remember that failure by other powers to give public, what we call global public goods, support to the world at the hour of need, led to the two wars that almost destroyed our civilizations. And what China is doing through the Belt and Road Initiative is to give global public goods to secure, particularly the poor in the developing world. That's why I'm passionate about what is happening now in our continent of Africa. And I say, given our history, I have no problem being conquered by development. You can conquer.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, conquer me anytime with the development, but please don't conquer me with the poverty. And therefore, BRI is about moving the world from the adversities that we have experienced, for example, from COVID-19. And on the African continent, we saw we don't have the technology that China or America and other powers have, but we were able to get our due share of vaccines. Those who are familiar with the history of Africa will remember that in 2000, one major magazine from the West, The Economist, wrote Africa off as a hopeless continent. And people are saying this is sick, it's not a place to go to. 10 years after our relationship with China, in 2011, the same magazine came up and talked about a hopeful continent, Africa rising. And what is this rising about? It's about China dispensing its global public goods to a continent that everybody else wrote off as hopeless. Today, we are not talking about a hopeless continent. We are talking about the scramble for Africa. Those who are not, who would like to look at things from the darker side of things would say, oh, there's a death trap, of China, death diplomacy and all that. But China has not given enough to the African continent compared with what it is giving in Europe and Asia and elsewhere. So we need more. It's not a trap. It is aid, it's help, it's assistance, it's partnership, it's cooperation. They are not traps. They are only, the only trap we have is that of trapping poverty. and I think we are going to deal with the poverty.
Well, I understand that you're saying wonderful things about China since you're working on a program in cooperation with the Chinese media. But what about some of the issues they have been talking about, such as the so-called debt trap? Of course, our colleague Peter have already mentioned part of that story. To you, Hisham, what is your understanding of the real story of the so-called debt trap?
Actually, debt trap is propaganda initiated from the Western and to stop any African country or other countries from cooperation with China. But in the fact, what is the options the Western or United States offer to those countries rather than taking debts or projects or initiate any investment from China? What is the other options? We don't have. That's my brother said. Africa being forgotten for many years and many other Asian countries. What is the options we have? First, industrial revolution, we couldn't catch. Second, industrial revolution, we couldn't catch. Third one, we couldn't catch. Now the fourth industrial revolution. Also, stay like this forever? This is unacceptable. So now this is from one side. Another side is China now is the second largest economy in the world, second largest economy, and it has a responsibility towards other countries. It's not only just export goods to other countries to consume. How come? Because in this cycle, the growth rate will not be, cannot stay forever for this growth. So to enhance the growth rate and to give opportunity for other countries to demand more products and more investments and renovation, this is never happened without investment.
BRI combines with everything and goes with everything. So I want to ask the professor, in some European countries, there is a concern about China's relation with the United States. What's the prospects? Because this relation has influence in the trade, in the economies. So what is the prospects according to China here?
And how is it reflecting the BRI issue?
Yeah, of course, when we talk about Africa, you talk about Europe, and there's always this 800-pound gorilla in the room, that is the United States of America, right? And so how can you talk about BRI without talking about the United States of America? I study U.S. domestic politics and also U.S.-China relations. I would say the prospects for U.S.-China relations are very bleak in the at least 10 to 20-year period of time. And I say this because you look at a number of indicators. Number one is this U.S. whole of government approach to de-risking from China. Europeans started the term de-risk, but Americans really picked it up. And then they enforce this in a whole of government way. So today you look at the U.S. Justice Department, for example, you check out the U.S. major universities' websites. They have a special column called Office of Research. And then you pull down the menu, you can, under Office of Research, there would be this long list of Chinese institutions blacklisted by the United States Department of Commerce on the entity list. And so you can see this. This is a whole of government approach. I was in the United States in January for 3 weeks. I was telling Wei just before we started the program. And I was really struck by how unwilling American counterparts are coming over to China. I talked to my longtime friends who used to be stationed here, U.S. diplomats. They are unwilling to come over to China. And so you can see this. And they look at the flights today. We have just 28 flights from China to the United States, whereas before the pandemic, every week we have about 320 flights. Today, we have less than 1/10 of the flights running.
I want you please to give us your sense as far as Greece's role for China. How Beijing here views Greece's role in the Europe?
I hope I have visited Greece, but I've never been there. But this is on my top of my list, right? China, of course, has a very good relationship with Greece. It's the birthplace of one of the greatest civilizations. And then we mentioned about the financial crisis, and China really offered to help the Greek government. And obviously, the Greek government and Greek people are very grateful. I can use that word. And so Greece could be kind of like the gateway to Europe, at least from the Mediterranean point of view, right? And then I can tell you a story about how the China EU or China's BRI is viewed in the West. On my way here on the taxi, I was telling Wei again, I got an email alert on my cell phone. It's a new article written by Francis Fukuyama, a name that is very well known in both the United States and China and Europe. And the title of the Foreign Affairs article is called BRI, China's Road to Ruin. So I thought like this must be a piece that is damning China's 10th anniversary of BRI. But turned out this is just a sensational title. When you check out the article, Fukuyama actually was quite cautious in his assessment of China's BRI. I would say more accurately, he was kind of like very ambivalent. Let me quote of his 2 sentences. He says, accusations of China's debt trap diplomacy are overblown. End of the quote. The second quote, he said, China does pose problems for Western countries, but the primary threat is not strategic. End of the quote. So this is just the new article on Foreign Affairs website, and you can check it out now.
So what does that mean to you?
So my take on this article is that even in the West, in the United States, there are observers who used to be highly critical of the BRI. And now they are kind of having second thoughts. Maybe we have been too critical of China. We are putting up like a very high bar of performance, a bar that even is high for Western companies and the Western governments. So I would strongly recommend that you check out the article. And so that's one indication that some leading public intellectuals in the United States, perhaps in the European Union, in Greece, they are rethinking their past criticism of China and the BRI.
May I also ask on top of that, where are we in terms of BRI? Are we already having the wonderful results of the BRI? Are we at the very initiative stage? Are we already enjoying the lower hanging fruits?
It started off in Pakistan, as Pakistan and China have an old strategic relationship. And the launching was very clear. President Xi Jinping personally came to Pakistan in 2015. So we have already completed the early harvest projects on schedule, $26 billion of Chinese investment, 85,000 jobs created, 28,000 Pakistani students studying outside, energy infrastructure, road infrastructure, Gawada port development, human development. And now I would say the best of BRI is yet to come as far as Pakistan goes, because we are talking of the relocation of Chinese small and medium industry and focusing on IT, focusing on agriculture, focusing on education. So, you know, this high quality BRI development is en route.
Actually, the Belt and Road Initiative is just in the first stage. And it's a long, long way to go. China, when announced about the initiative, was a plan to continue in this initiative until 2049, which is come with the centenary, with the foundation of China. And as I say, this first stage was the hardest and the most difficult stage, because it's all the fundamentals and the infrastructure and all those investments, just the basics for the real growth and for the real industrialization and education and exchange and the people-to-people bonds. All these things didn't come yet to the fruitful result.
Well, I've often heard the Belt and Road Initiative called the project of the century. So after only a decade, I would say it's premature to call it done and finished. While many advances have been made, I think that there's cases like, for example, Argentina only joined a year and a half ago. We have a lot of projects that haven't even been started that are in the negotiating phase. So we have a while to go. At the same time, I feel there's many countries around the world that could benefit enormously from joining the Belt and Road Initiative, not only from their own national space, but taking advantage of the global, regional, continental opportunities that the Belt and Road Initiative presents.
I like the quote that you used, is the project of the century. If that is the case, it means tremendous impact on how we are going to relate ourselves to all the others that are under the umbrella of Belt and Road Initiative and beyond. So I guess we are moving to a part that's very exciting. What is likely to be the impact of BRI on people-to-people exchanges, on cultural mutual learnings, and also on inter-civilization exchanges? I know both of my colleagues coming from Argentina and Greece, you are the expert. Please ask your questions to our panelists, please. Yeah.
In my opinion, and very briefly, I think in our corner of the world, a lot of times we hear talks about, you know, in the world, this happens. In the world, people act like this and that. But unfortunately, this is a misconception, because usually when people refer to the world in our concentrated medias and some academic institutions, they're truly referring to the West. And I think for far too long, Latin Americans have had a far too Western-centric view of the world, and the West and the world are not the same thing. And I think really the rise of China and the rise of a multipolar system will fundamentally transform people's understanding and really open their eyes to just how diverse and rich the world really is.
I think I like what he said earlier, that BLI is not about brick and mortar. It's more than brick and mortar. And if it is more than brick and mortar, we are more concerned about how it's bringing about these interlinkages between not people, but civilizations. We are living in a world today where the common, what you call the grand narratives are about crash of civilizations, where civilizations are seen as armies, you know, armed to the teeth in this war between cultures and civilizations, which is a false narrative. The truth of the matter is that BRI and other similar initiatives are about bringing about dialogue of civilizations, discussions about among people. Bringing these interactions mean that we have to basically look, be tolerant about other people's cultures. And BRI is doing just that.
Before I ask a question, I would say that during the last decade with BRI, the investment of Costco brought China in the framework, in the picture of Greece. So we have a growing large Chinese community in Athens. We have the trade which has increased to €1 billion during the last years, and also boosted tourism with a lot of Chinese tourists coming to Greece, but also brought together academics from both countries, Greece and China. Recently attended in Greece an important conference between Chinese and Greek academians with the topic of Aristotle and Confucius, and how these philosophers could help the recent problems be solved, and how can contribute these philosophers, these ancient philosophers, to contribute to global challenges. So I would ask the professor from China, our colleague, how do you think the views and the values of Aristotle, of Confucius, can help the community, the international community, approach better challenges like the artificial intelligence, the climate change, challenges in the economy?
I can't say much about Aristotle or Confucianism, but one thing I do want to say is that on this very important occasion of the 10th anniversary of BRI, we should never be complacent about what we have accomplished. Especially, we should always be concerned that increasing economic interconnectivity or interdependence does not necessarily bring more trust, does not necessarily bring more friendship. We can still see that as China's footprints are expanding in the world, there is, in some corners of the world, you can see rising xenophobia, rising racism, rising populism targeting Chinese nationals and Chinese companies. So if you really want to have diversity in harmony, that's a classic Chinese phrase. We have still a long way to go. You don't have to look at other, just look across the Pacific Ocean. You can see there's this rise of nativism, anti-Chinese sentiments. And so I think, in a word, economic interconnectivity is so important, but we should never take it for granted that people-to-people exchanges will automatically flourish on the foundation of economic interdependence.
I think BRI is really exploding Samuel P. Huntington's theory of clash of civilization. By promoting dialogue amongst civilizations rather than a clash. Our magazine has been doing stories about the Silk Route in English and in Chinese, and promoting Pakistani culture and stories about arts and theater. Yeah, and we had this fabulous exhibition called Salam Confucius, which promoted Confucianism in Islamabad.
And salam means peace.
As we are talking about people-to-people exchanges and the dialogue among civilizations, crucial aspects of the Belt and Road Initiative, I see here a wonderful group of Chinese students who are attending our news program today. I would like to invite them to come to Greece, learn about Greek philosophy and civilization, taste the delicious Greek products that Paris mentioned before, and above all, visit the investment of Costco shipping in the port of Piraeus physically. It will be very important to understand the Belt and Road Initiative by physically visiting the port.
Well, as journalists, we already asked many questions to our panelists today, but we have the rising generation sitting in the audience. I'm sure they have much smarter questions for the future to ask.
Hi, I'm Ru Qi from Communication University of China. And my question is, how sustainable is the BRI?
Regarding sustainability of BRI, I would say yes. It is certainly sustainable for three reasons. Number one, it's linked with China's track record with the outside world. And China's track record of diplomacy and interaction with the outside world is qualitatively different than the interaction of the West. Number two, the sustainability is also dependent on the first phase of BRI producing results. And the results are evident. I mentioned Pakistan, other countries have mentioned that. And the third factor, which is important for sustainability, in my view, is the political ownership. It's voluntary. The ownership by the countries with which who are recipients of BRI support. And they want to be part of BRI because it is of mutual benefit.
Issue, I would diagnose four main aspects that are important: the political, geopolitical, the economic, the environmental, and the social one. As far as the environmental aspect is concerned, Chinese companies, especially in the West, will need to get aligned with the European environmental framework. And as far as the social aspect is concerned, it will be important also for Chinese companies to invest more in the context of the social responsibility programs in order to help local communities in the countries where they are investing.
Well said. Before we go, I would love to invite one or two sentences from every one of you. Help us to understand in your heart, where is Belt and Road Initiative and where do you hope it should go?
Belt and Road Initiative is a new chance for the world, for the bright future.
The BRI is still work in progress, but so far we've seen its fruits, and it's transforming Africa.
An alternative form of development, a peaceful form of development.
The world is at inflection points, and we are seeing two contrasting visions. And BRI is on the right side of history because it's talk of modernization, not militarization. And it's talking of building bridges, not creating barriers.
So BRI, in my view, is China's contribution to humanity's prosperity and development. It's a long way to go, and we have not even half finished. And we have to be well prepared for the road ahead.
BRI has shown to the world in the last years that has all the elements that the world needs to approach global challenges.
BRI can contribute to prosperity and mutual learning.
I think the initiative will bring mainly the peace and development. It's the most important.
Well said.
I think BRI is a gamble on friendship, cooperation, and respect.
Oh, well said. I will wrote many notes after our conversation. Thank you so much. And with that, we are wrapping up our special program today, Vision into Reality. I'm Tian Wei from CGTN. Together with our colleagues, thank you for watching. We are going to see you along the way of the Belt and Road Initiative. Thank you. Goodbye.